Welcome to Reading by Candlelight at Molly's Cottage, where we proudly celebrate and promote new Australian authors and their stories. I'm Fiona Taylor, host of Reading by Candlelight, a community of readers brought together by Molly, founder and owner of Molly's Cottage, a sustainable gifting business. Molly's Cottage offer a monthly book box promoting a debut or emerging Australian writer, and their book is accompanied by selected local products complementing the novel's setting or protagonist. We hope that you enjoyed this month's chat with our Reading by Candlelight book box author. Welcome, Kerryn Mayne, to Reading by Candlelight at Molly's Cottage.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Now, I'm all ready to go with my copy of the book.
Me too.
And my Lenny Gets Away with Murder mug.
So I've got my other mug, and my husband made my coffee, and I'm like, this is the mug I put out for you, because I said Fiona got me this one. So it's here, but it's as yet unvarnished. It's untouched. So I've got my unvarnished, unblemished. So that's just there for my display purposes because I love it. Lenny Marks, the one where Lenny Marks gets a life.
I'm glad you love it. Now I can't wait to chat about all things Lenny.
Wonderful. It's my favourite topic.
But first I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Here at Reading by Candlelight, we're all about celebrating new voices, and so I add my appreciation of Aboriginal stories handed down for generations. Now, Kerryn, Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder is your debut novel, but you're also the mother of 4 young children, including 7-month-old twins.
Yeah.
Currently on maternity leave from your very important job as a police detective. And what a busy life you have.
Yeah. I know. So well, admittedly, I only had 2 children when I wrote Lenny Marks. So, and I thought I was busy then. So little did I know. But then I thought I was busy with 1. I thought that was the busiest I could ever be in my life. And then I had 2 kids and I went, oh, okay. Now I'm up to 4 and it is relatively busy. But they're good kids and, you know, my husband and I are a great team. So it works all right. And I'm on maternity leave. So there is it's worked out quite well for the launch of the book, which is just over a month now, because I could kind of book in events and stuff without having to worry about my day job, because I would like to keep that for the minute.
Now, first of all, I must congratulate you on such a stunning debut. I loved Lenny, both the character and the book. I found it uplifting, despite the subject matter, and surprisingly funny. But now that I've met you and spoken to you a few times, I know how funny you are. And you have a cast of wonderfully rounded characters that are in Lenny's life and sometimes in her head.
Yes.
Now, remembering this is a no spoiler interview,
yes.
Can you give us an elevator pitch for Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder?
Sure. It's probably a bit more waffly than a nice, succinct elevator pitch, but I'll give it a go. So Lenny Marks is a school teacher in her late 30s working in Belgrave in the Dandenongs. She is very structured. She thrives on routine. She prefers the school day and the school bell to the school holidays. And that's her job. She's done it all her life. She knows she goes to the supermarket on a Monday and a Thursday. She knows she goes to her foster mums every second weekend for lunch, and that's how she likes things done. She finds that stable. And then she gets a letter from the Adult Parole Board, and that tells her that her stepfather's coming out of prison. She hasn't seen him for almost 20 years when she last saw her and her mum. And as far as she's concerned, she doesn't know why he was in prison or what it's got to do with her. And that, in conjunction with her foster mum saying it's time to get a life, get a life, in a really nice way, because she's a gorgeous foster mum, sort of trigger a whole little avalanche of events that change Lenny's life. So it's coming for her whether she likes it or not. So it's a bit longer than an elevator pitch, but there it is.
No, it's very good. Now, congratulations. You've had such an overwhelmingly positive response to this novel. I think a lot of people connect with it on many different levels. And like I said, it's easily one of my favorite debut novels. And I've recommended it to everyone.
Right.
It's got something for everybody in it. You must be really pleased with the reaction of readers and book bloggers and other writers to your novel.
Yeah, it's quite so because I'm looking for it, it's hard for me to be subjective as to whether it's everywhere that I see it because I'm looking for it or because it's actually, out there. But it is in, like it's in Big W and Kmart and um, Target, as well as all the bookshops. And and it's been, the bookstagrammers have been great. The book community just seems really lovely and supportive anyway. And like, I love the book. I love the characters, especially Lenny. Like, Lenny is particularly special to me. But you just don't know what people are going to take away. Like, she probably irritates some people, I'm sure. But, even that means that you've written a character that somehow gets under somebody, like that, it's
Yeah.
realistic enough. So unless somebody reads it and goes, what a lot of waffle, this just would never happen. Like, I love it because, even a book where you're irritated by the characters or the plot, you're like, why would that happen? At least you've read it, you've paid attention, and something's resonated with you. I am surprised because she has so many quirks and traits. How many people have said how relatable she is? Because
Yeah.
I thought, some of her traits are a bit more exaggerated, but I think most of us have some of those things, like a little bit of social anxiety about things, which she has sort of to a larger extent. And then you've got your own little things you work on to calm yourself. And then, the Friends and Buffy fans have come out of the woodwork. Like, I knew Friends was popular, but like, people still love it. People still watch it. Likewise, Buffy, like the amount of people that have said, oh my God, Buffy was, one of my favorite shows. So I think there's just a few things in there that really hit a chord with people, and then she's also just ultimately kind. She's just got a good heart, and I think that warms her to people. She's not out there trying to, stir up any trouble, sort of, like maybe. Spoiler free. I mean, it does say on the cover that she gets away with murder, or does she? So maybe she's not as nice as we think. Yeah, but the response has been lovely, and to have people slide into my DMs that I don't know, like, obviously my mum has to tell me it's a good book because she's my mother. Actually, she's quite honest, so there's a good chance if she didn't like it, she would have told me. But people have said, oh, you've reinvigorated my love of reading. I read this and now I'm, on and borrowed up.
That's gorgeous.
It's such a huge compliment. So yeah, I've been thrilled and continue to be thrilled by the whole entire experience.
Yeah, I think that I read once a debut author who said, just enjoy it, enjoy every moment of it, because you never get that first book. You never get that first book experience again. And the whole overwhelming wonder of it all is to be celebrated and enjoyed and taken for what it is. And I just think that the response has been so wonderful, because I think that you created a character that people really enjoyed and related to. And she's very well rounded. I mean, she's just a beautiful, it's almost like she's bigger than the story.
It is a bit like that. I think she's the sort of character that you really take away from the story, and she could almost be transported into a whole nother story, and it wouldn't have to necessarily be an exact knock on. I don't have another story for her at the moment, but I'm open to negotiations about that. But yeah, she is just a lovable character. And I was worried after finishing it, and because I hadn't started another book or got I have now, but I didn't have an idea in mind that sort of grabbed at me like Lenny Marks did. I thought, what if I can't, what if there's nothing else? What if this is it? What if I'm a one hit wonder? I think I've worked out a couple of new characters that I like just as much, but very different again. But yeah, Lenny Marks, she's one out of the box, which I think Ned actually says to her in the book. So yeah.
Now, how long did it take you to write?
So I judge it from, I started this book around about when my son was born. So he's 3. So from sort of start to publication, about 3 years.
That's really quick.
Yeah, and it is. And it's funny because I think if, you're a writer, so you get the time frames of things.
Mhm.
It sounds like a long time, but it's really not a long time. And you know, you're also working your other jobs, because most people, I mean, I can't think of many, you know, new authors that get the opportunity unless writing's also their job, but then they're still writing it for other things, you know, like you're doing it as a side hustle for the majority of the time, plus whatever else life's throwing at you. And then also, and I don't know how you go with it or at what point you were comfortable to say it, but I was not embarrassed, but very reluctant to say to people, oh, actually, that's my writing time. I would go, oh, okay, yeah, we can do that then, or you know, there was an appointment for the kids, or something came up. I'd just move my plans. Whereas I'm trying to be a bit more structured about it now, where I go, that's actually my writing time because I'm an author. Um,
I think that once you have a book, you can actually do that. I can't do that yet. I don't find that. Yeah, I just go, oh, you want me to come here? Sure.
Yeah, but I think you should, and I think you could. And also, it's so people are so interested by it. I thought more people would sort of laugh about it, but the amount of people that are, you know, have said either, "Oh, I would love to write a book," or "Oh, I've, you know, written since high school, but just for me," or just, "Oh, what's it about?" So it's actually been really lovely, and I think because also I'm in the police force, and it's quite a jokey sort of environment. I just expected that most people would just sort of give me a bit of grief over it and sort of take the piss. But I've had messages from old colleagues who have messaged me to say, just pre-ordered your book. You know, congratulations. This is so fantastic. It's just been gorgeous everywhere I've gone. So
That's so
lovely.
nice.
Yeah.
I think it's because people think that it's something that not your not saying that you're average in every day, but your average everyday person does. So they always kind of, you know, they hold authors up to this high esteem. And then, you know, when they meet somebody that they know who's actually doing that, it's really exciting. It's a bit like, you know, they went out and got a partner movie or
Well, and it is, and I think that's why it's good to talk to people about it, because all of a sudden you're going, oh, look at all these people that want to write a book that think, oh, it's not a thing that, you know, we do because we're not in the literary circles and we're not, you know, up there, we're not friends with a publisher and stuff. But I am you know, a everyday person that has managed to get a book published, and I think that's going to come up later. But you know, there's a couple of things that have happened that have been quite fortuitous, and so a bit of luck, but also so there's a lot of hard work behind that luck.
yeah.
So yeah, but if you're an everyday person, keep writing, because you know, we've got good stories in us. Like, on we go.
Now, I suppose you didn't need any help with police research, but did you do any research into the psychology of Lenny's trauma?
Yeah, I did. And so largely I did it online. And I think with my next book, I'm a bit braver about reaching out to real life people and, you know, using my circle a bit better as well. But I think with Lenny, I was quite comfortable that I didn't deep dive into anything too much. And in an original version, she'd actually been, you know, I had her sitting with a psychologist and conversations, and I took all that out because I actually thought it didn't enhance the story. And it was like it sounds silly. It was a private moment between Lenny and her psychologist, and I wanted to leave it there. And also, I'm not a psychologist, so I didn't want to do something that fell short. So I think yeah, research wise with the crime stuff, I still double checked a lot of things because I thought, if I get that wrong, people are going to look at me and go, so are you really a police officer? Because, I mean, you said you're a detective for 6 years, but were you a not very good one? Like Hitchcock and Scully in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That was me. I just, you know, was there for the coffee and donut breaks. So I thought, of all the people, I would really like to get that stuff right. And there's not a huge heap of stuff in there, but there's a bit of courtroom stuff that I just wanted to make sure was as realistic as it could be. But then it's also fiction. So, you know, we all can blur those lines a bit. But yeah, the psychology stuff I did, and I did a lot of it online. And I also wanted to treat it as sensitively as possible because trauma does impact people hugely and in different ways. And I certainly wanted to make sure there was no either brushing over it or any sort of derogatory sort of looking upon it, because I just think like people that face huge traumas and huge things going on, the resilience and the strength that they have is just, it blows me away. I just think it's incredible. So, and that's also why it's focused on Lenny and not on the offence or the offender. I really wanted it to be, it's why I won't watch that Jeffrey Dahmer serial. It's not a documentary, but I think it's called Dahmer, isn't it?
Yes.
You know the one. And I won't watch it because it's too focused on him. And I don't like that. Like I wanted it, and I do love a crime or a true crime. And so I do want to know those things, but I just went, something's actually a bit icky about that. It's so offender focused. So, and also like his crimes are absolutely like, I don't want to lose sleep sitting up thinking about people like that being in the world. So, I kept my research. I kept it sort of, one of my doctor friends actually said to me, she goes, oh, you made it vague enough to be believable. I'm like, thank you, I think. Okay, good. And because, I didn't want to, it's like anything, you do all the research. So you've got all this information, but you're it's very limited actually what you use out of it. So, No,
I think you did a brilliant job. And I think that it's important that Lenny never feels like she's a victim.
Yes.
Agreed. And I think that, and I really enjoyed that about it. She doesn't go around blaming anyone for how this life that she's been dealt. She just gets on with it.
Yes.
And not everyone can do that, but this is her story. She's able to do that. And I think that that's an important part of that, is how she relates to things and how she moves through her life. And when everything starts to come back at her, how she handles it is the important part of the story. And that's what I really enjoyed about it. I think you did a great job with that, Kerryn.
Good, thank you. And that's exactly what I was focusing on. I didn't want her to, and everybody handles things different, so there's no taking away from anybody that
no, not at all,
get up and have a 9 to 5 job and ride their bike around the Dandenongs. But that's Lenny, and that's how I wanted her to handle it, because she was, I always had a roof over my head and I was always fed, and I'm not a burden on anyone, and that's my success.
Yes, and that's who she is. Yes, it's not lessening anybody else's reaction to grief or trauma. It's just the way that she's coping with it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
Now, what made you decide to set it in Belgrave?
Right. So the Hobbit features quite prominently in the book. And I love that story, and it's such a lovely adventure. And it also has it's sort of in a very blurred sort of way, don't sue me, Tolkien estate. It kind of has that sort of same sort of journey as Bilbo. So like there and back again, like this Hobbit reluctant to leave his house, and then things just keep coming to his door. That means he's actually got to get out and he's going to do something, but really just actually wants to go back and smoke his pipe and sit in his room in the Shire. So there was a bit of that sort of at the back of my mind, but also I wanted her to have something really sentimental to her. So it obviously had to have a certain age to it, because she got it, and then she got it from her mum. So it had to be fairly old. So there was a few things at play there, but then the Dandenongs just seems like the perfect place for a mystery. Like there's, that many, little hidden bits and, dark roads, and it's just mysterious, and it's gorgeous. And then you were at the talk on the weekend where one of the ladies in the audience, because they were a Belgrave writers group, said, oh, and we've got our own Gandalf. And I thought she was perhaps just being polite and encouraging me in my ramblings about why I said it in Belgrave. And she brought up the hashtag for it, and there's a Belgrave wizard he's like 93 or something, and he's very well photographed because he looks so remarkable. But yeah, he gets around with his big staff, and he's the Belgrave wizard, Bubba DC, I think, or something, hashtag DC. So like tick, 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 like I almost, if I had have known all these things, I would have gone, oh, it's too obvious. But it's worked out perfectly. So that's why it's in Belgrave. The next one's not set in Belgrave, but I do also love a setting that's familiar. Like I love reading books where they go, oh, whatever happened, and they're in, wherever, even if it's the other side of the city, and I go, Northcote, I know where Northcote is, because all of a sudden it gives me like a center, a grounding of, where they are and stuff. So yeah, Belgrave, and I just think it worked perfectly. And it also gave me a really good excuse when I went for a couple of little overnight solo riders jaunts to book a place in the Dandenongs and just sit there and soak it in, and like actually solo, no friends or anything. I just sat there, I took my computer, and I got some good work done while I was there.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I just thought you must have, grown up there or something, because you got so much of it so right.
Well, and not far from there. So I grew up in Narrewarren North, so at the sort of the foothills of the Dandenongs, but yeah, not quite. But yeah, it's just a unique place up there. We love going for a drive up there and going through the tea shop with all the tea pots and yes, all the cute little
apples.
Yes, all those. So yeah, I love it up there. It's such a beautiful place.
It is beautiful. Now, Lenny is, as we've said, an incredibly engaging character, and I love everything about her. And you've done such a masterful job of bringing her to life. And what I wanted to know was, did she come to you fully formed, or did you build her with multiple drafts?
Yeah, so built with multiple drafts, and I think it got quirkier as time went on, because the more I thought about the sort of characters I like to read, and the ones that stayed with me, I thought, yeah, they've all got sort of like a little bit of a unique sort of thing about them, or they're sort of, somehow living a normal life with some eccentricities. And yeah, so she arrived fairly accurate to what she is now, but like the anagrams she makes, so to calm herself, Lenny will think of a word and then she'll move it around in her head, so she just keeps rotating the words. That was sort of like an epiphany, because I wanted her to have something a little bit different, a little bit quirky, something to calm herself without just being a breathing exercise or something. I wanted it to be something really specific to her, and it was a combination of my husband watching a lot of 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown, that show.
I love that show.
Yeah. Which I love. And I also love the serious version of it, Letters and Numbers, or what Countdown, I think it's called in the UK. I love the serious version, and I'm all for those puzzles. Like, I love a puzzle page out of the paper. It's the only reason I buy the paper. So there was those things. And so I wrote that in. And after, like, quite significantly down the track, because I went, that's actually perfect. She can move the letters around. And then I went, and we can put in some like crazy little hints and make some of the words sort of form into things that make it a sign of what her mood is or what's about to come.
Yeah, it was very, very clever.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that. And I think that, did you use a word generator?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, God, I just thought you were just damn clever.
Oh, no. And because I was worried I'm a bit of a word nerd, but I'm not I'm not as good as some people. So I thought I would hate to get that wrong. And I thought, also, I don't want my editor to have to double check all of those. So I'd use the word generator, and that helped me, because sometimes I hadn't picked up on a word that could like really hit the nail on the head. And it's funny, because I did a book event on Tuesday night at a library, and afterwards the other author and a couple of friends of mine, we all went out for dinner, and one of my friends said, I never read the anagrams. I just was like, what's this nonsense, and kept moving. And I'm like, yeah, and that's fine. And the other one said, no, I love the clues in it. And I'm like, either way, fine, because what it does is just says to you at that moment in time, she's taking a minute, like she's calming herself. So I didn't think everybody would necessarily read them, but what I hoped it meant was that as you went through the page, you went, oh, she's just, needs a minute. She's just doing her Lenny, one of her Lennyisms. So yeah, but there are, for those who haven't read it yet, you might pick up a few little hints or states of mind in it. But yeah, but then the problem is I've gone and done that, and now I've got I can't give my next characters that. but I'm waiting for the next epiphany to go, oh yes, that's what my next character will do. Because and you want to make them different, but that at the same time I'm like, I loved doing that. Why can't all my characters do anagrams? Can you imagine what my editor would say if I handed it in and she's like, well, actually you've just renamed this character, but it's still Lenny Marks.
Lenny lives on.
Yeah, exactly. She's just, people have really taken her and run with her. There's Lenny's everywhere, and she is relatable. So maybe there's people getting around, just switching words around in their heads, all over the place. So yeah,
maybe because of what we just talked about, we can talk a little bit about Lenny has been compared, and very favourably, I might add, with some wonderfully quirky literary characters, including Eleanor Oliphant and Don Tillman, and yet she's ultimately her own person. Mm. And how important was for you to create a backstory for her that was unique? And how do you feel about the comparisons, which I have to say have all been very complimentary? And I think that it means that Lenny has now joined a very special group of much loved and memorable fiction characters, beloved by readers everywhere. So it's a compliment.
Yeah.
Is it something that you felt a bit like, oh, but she's not?
No, and I think so. As writers, we also need to have comp titles for our books. So we do need to have a think about, like, if it's so unusual that you can't compare it to anything and they can't shelve it, they're probably not going to be able to sell it.
Yes.
So we do need to know, well, where does this fall? And so when I pitched it, I did pitch it as, for readers of Eleanor Oliphant. And which was a bit borderline being able to do because it's an older book now, but it really did fit it. And it's also like, that's grown legs. Like that's a sort of a brand of its own. Like I think most people would know who Eleanor Oliphant is if they've got a bit of a bookhead on their shoulders. And also I'm still waiting for her second book. Like I feel like maybe she's just trying to recreate something as magical, and as well as Sally Hepworth's The Good Sister.
Yes, with Byrne. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the way it was pitched, and then I'd had other people, in fact Sally Hepworth, read it, and Lisa Island, who also said, we see that about it. And I said to Sally, is it all right if I use your book to compare it to? Because I feel almost a little bit. And she's like, no, that's what I've told, that's what I've told other people. It's just like that. So that made me feel a bit better about it, because it's a weird thing. Like there's no true original ideas. It's just hasn't been written by you or me or whoever. So it becomes original by how we put it together. So I'm flattered by those comparisons. It is funny though. So one of the first bookshop I went into to see my book, and it was on launch day, and I met my friend, and I won't say what bookshop it is because this is not offensive. I just thought it was hilarious. And it was a bit of a Lenny comment because it was so blunt. And the woman said to me, so I said, can I sign the books? And I signed them. And then my friend and I went and had champagne. And it was and then both our sets of babies started crying. She's got one, I've got two. So then we're like, okay, well, that was fun for skull, and off we go. That's about as, as exciting and party hardy I've gone in the last month. So she said, now who do I pitch this? Like, what if customers say, what's this one about? And I said, well, it's been compared to Eleanor Oliphant, is completely fine. And she said, oh, that's a big call. And I went, oh, well, and I kind of stumbled because I'm like, oh yeah, but other people have said that to me. Like, I'm not just saying, and I'm like, okay, well, just for readers that like a twist in a bit of a, and then I got all flustered and I didn't know what to say. And I'm like, well, it has. So, but that's your first time talking about it too. And I just thought, oh yeah, fair enough. But that is one of my favorite books. But then also I loved, the more I've thought about it, because I've been asked that question a few times, like about the comparisons, but I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Stranger Than Fiction with Carol in it. Oh God, it's glorious. And Harold Crick, the character in that's the sort of character that stays with you as well. Just an ordinary person where sort of extraordinary things happen. And likewise, like your Little Miss Sunshine show, that sort of vibe, like that's got a bit of a quirky element, and it's got characters that you sort of adore, and can relate to, but you go, God, I'm glad that's not my family.
Yes.
So yeah, it's but yeah, I'm more than happy with the comparisons, and in a way I think great, because it means when it falls on a shelf it's actually marketable, which, as much as I didn't write this book, like it didn't sell, like, you know, it wasn't under contract, but I did always, like, I think most authors would be writing with the hopes of getting published, so it worked for me.
Yeah. And I'm glad you take it as a compliment, because I think it's a huge compliment, because she's not Eleanor Oliphant, and she's not Don Tillman, and she's not Fern. And she is her own person, and you made her incredibly unique by putting all those things together. It's just that it's almost like when a character is quirky, they have to all be bundled into this one group of quirky characters, and yet they're very unique.
Yes, I agree. And then that's when, like, I've been asked, you know, she appears a bit neurodivergent. I struggle with the neurodivergent, my tongue getting around it, because some of those characters are like your Don Tillman and your Fern. But then I'm not saying that she is, but I'm not saying she's not, or that there would be a problem with that, but it's actually not part of her story. Like, that's the person she is. She's got on and she's got through life. Yes, she's very literal. Yes, she's got a few sort of probably signs that maybe she would be neurodivergent should she be tested for that sort of thing, but also it doesn't matter either way, like, she's the character she is. So yeah, but you're right, they do tend to get bunched together, but I am flattered by the comparison. But I also think, I'm just sitting here staring at your bookshelves, and I think there's a bit of Lenny about you, because I don't know if you did it or your best literary husband did it, but to have that, like, the color gradient that you've got there, there's some
black color.
There's Lenny about your bookshelves.
I used to have them in alphabetical order.
Also Lenny.
But I wanted them to look pretty. So I did them in color. And I get so many comments about the fact that they're color coordinated.
Yeah.
And it makes it difficult to find a book. But I don't care.
Or to add a book.
My husband will say, "What colour's this book? I want to read it."
Well, and then you don't want to ruin the fine balance. And so if you buy too many yellow books, like,
I have other bookcases in the house, and they're all rainbow as well. And you can take things out and put them on and things like that and move them around. It's really it works very well. I think we all have a little bit of Lenny in us, though.
I think we do. I can see why you related to her so well. Yeah.
And she reminds me of people that I know.
Yes. Yeah, and I think because you steal, and somebody said to me, I can't remember where it came from, that it's characters have been are usually a third of the author, a third of people you know, and then a third made up. And I think the balance there is probably about right, because there is a lot of me about Lenny, but then also, I've definitely stolen some traits from other people, and then just the rest, you know, you just fill in because you want to make them as unique as you can without making them completely, you know, unrelatable.
Yes, exactly.
I'd love a store, though, to come and mow my lawn. That would make life a lot easier.
Now, I love the mix of tones in your book. I think that her journey is often humorous, but it's always emotional.
Yep.
And but the suspense and the mystery is always in the background. And did you find that it was difficult to balance the humor with the emotion behind Lenny's story?
So no, I found that the humor for her was injected really naturally. So the book before Lenny that I've written, that's just in a drawer, and by drawer I mean on the hard drive, was a police procedural, and it's quite serious. But with Lenny, because I'm not writing about like a thing I know through work, and that there's a lot of procedure and a lot of structure to it, even though her character is procedure and structure, I could just kind of inject some of my own. Like, I love a dry humor. I love, you know, sort of sarcasm is my jam. Like, there's not many things I say that people don't look at me and go, "Oh, really?" Even if I'm being genuine, because they just assume that I've gone to sarcasm. So yeah, I think the humor wasn't hard. But what I find funny is that it's ultimately an uplifting story, and that's the feedback that's come from it, even though that there is murder and trauma in it. And there's other books I've read that certainly have, as very tragic stories in them, but they also ultimately end up uplifting. But I also didn't set out to write it that way. Like I set out to write a domestic suspense because I thought that'll be great because I can make it, a character, an ordinary, extraordinary person with some dark twists in there. So the uplifting bit was actually a bit of a shock for me. So the humor I got in no problems because I think that just came. But the uplift was unexpected. Yeah. So, and now I've got to, so I pitched my next idea to my editor and she said, love it, and I won't go into it yet because it's still, in my brain. But she said it's a bit darker than Lenny. I think people will want the same sort of uplifting. So now I've just got to try and make another uplifting murder.
Oh, so easy.
I know. Or as Kylie Ladd said in a comment on Instagram, she said upkill. You could call it upkill. And I'm like, I like that. Yes.
I like that too.
Upkill book.
And if anybody is not following you yet on Instagram, they should, because you're extremely amusing.
Oh,
I love your posts. They're so funny and your stories are hysterical. Just when you read post things from people and you say things, I just think, oh my goodness, I can just imagine her saying that.
Yes, I do. Yeah, my go-to is humour. I do love a laugh. I don't think anything, including getting away with murder, should be taken too seriously. So yeah, KCM Writes is me. So follow along. But now there's pressure to be funny. So.
I think you're just naturally funny, Kerryn. I think you've got I think you're very, very like Sally Hepworth, just naturally, and it just comes naturally to you to be amusing and engaging.
Oh, thanks. There's another nice comparison too. I'll be compared to Sally Hepworth. It's bloody brilliant.
Oh, I know. No,
Uber super awesome writer. Yeah, I'm sort of stalking her, but I don't think she knows yet.
I think lots of people stalk Sally.
Yeah, so do I. So do I, actually.
Now, for all our writers listening, are you a plotter or a pantser?
Pantser. But then with I think, do you think there's any true pantsers? Like you sit down and you haven't, like I've kind of in my head and I haven't written it all down, or sometimes I've jotted a few notes. I haven't plotted it out. I haven't spreadsheeted it or anything, but there is an idea of where I'm trying to get to.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So a pantser with a bit of a plan.
What do they call that? A plantser.
Yeah. And then I think, oh, that's probably, and then I go, oh, don't be a fence sitter, Kerryn. Pick a team. So I'd say pantser. And also because I smashed through the draft of what I'm writing now because I knew what I wanted it to end like. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to get here. And then when I get there, I can go back and reassess. And then I'm there now. And then I went, oh no, actually, that was I was so sure that that's what it was going to look like at the end. And then I went, actually, no, now that I've got to know all these characters along the way, I think something else is going to happen. So yeah, I'm over planning for me, I think would make it a bit less fun, but I can see that not doing 47,000 drafts would be great. I don't know what you're up to on your drafts, but it gets exhausting to go back and go again. And I don't know if your version control's better than mine, but mine's pretty average.
But you use Word, don't you?
Yes, that's right. Yes. And we had this discussion and I do need to look into other programs, but I just kind of don't want to, because time is such a premium at the moment. If I stop and learn something new, I feel like it'll slow me down. So maybe after I've finished like a draft I'm happy with, I might stop and learn Scrivener. Or somebody brought up Ulysses, which I'd never heard of. But I might just do the Natasha Lester Australian Writer Centre course, Scrivener, and then I'll be able to make a good determination of.
It's an excellent course, and Natasha does say that she's trying to get every writer to switch to Scrivener, one author at a time.
She should get a commission from them then.
She should. Yeah, no, she's very passionate about it, and it was very quick to learn using her.
Okay, all right, good.
Well, her. It was.
It's not an expensive course, and I love the Australian Writer Centre. They're so supportive of writers, so I'm all for that. I'll do that.
You did one of their courses, didn't you?
Yeah, I did creative writing when sort of lockdown hit, and that was between writing the first police procedural and Lenny Marks. And I wanted something where I could interact with people. And I still every now and again the other writers in the group will email, which was really nice just to see what everybody's up to and what everyone's doing. And I just love that live interaction and feedback from a real life tutor. And I think it's really important to know the rules, even if you break them. You just need to know. I don't think you can learn too much. Like, you know, the more you can take in your brain, and I love a podcast about writing, and I follow, you know, I've got newsletters and stuff I follow. You'd be the same. Like,
Oh, I am.
the more you can soak, like just sponge out of people, the better.
And what advice would you give anyone who's wanting to be published?
Keep at it. Get the words down. You can't edit a blank page. I mean, these are all things people have heard before, but it is so true. Like, yeah, you might not have time, but, you know, little by little, you're still getting more done than not doing it all. And I'm all for scrolling through your phone and wasting time on it. But I really think that by stopping myself from doing that, that's how I got a book written, because I don't have any magical time. Nobody has any magical time. It'd be really nice if like everything else stopped. I've written with my daughter standing on the other side of the desk, and I said to her, I need 20 minutes. And she had a big ostrich feather at the time. Long story why we have an ostrich feather, but we did. And she stood there with it in front of her face. And I said, what are you doing? And she goes, I'm giving you 20 minutes, and put it back in front of her face. And she stood there watching me the whole time. And I thought, well, if this is how I'm getting it, fine. And on I went. So like, you know, you just got to sit down and you've got to do it. And I think everybody doubts what they're writing in some manner. So whether you think it's your draft's crap, or you think your idea is not good, or you think you don't have the chops for it, whatever it is, well, you're only going to get better by working on it. So I'm certainly no expert. I've written a book. I've been very lucky to get it where it's gone. But it's all like, it's the perseverance. Like, there'd be that many half-written manuscripts out there. So if you can finish one, you're ahead of the game to start with. So, you know, get on with it. And don't compare yourself to others' journeys, because you might read a book and you go, oh, mine's better than that. It just doesn't work that way. Like, it's not, yeah, you can't look at it that way. You've just got to focus on yours, make it the best you can. Don't write because you think that this might be popular, you know, in the market. Write something you love, because then it'll just should pour out of you. And then, oh, look at me go, oh, I don't know what advice I'd have to give. I'm new to all this. And like, off I go giving advice. I love to give my 2 cents. Like, the problems of the world I could solve if only I was asked. The amount of things I have no education on, but I'm happy to give my 2 cents on.
Now, for all our readers who are listening today, can you recommend a book by an Australian debut author that you've read recently that you'd like to recommend, or just even just an Australian author?
So many, and I knew you were going to ask this. And so there's a couple, because that's all I can have on to. So there's one I read, and I'm doing a Sisters in Crime talk with her on the weekend.
Oh, yes, I have that.
Yeah, on Friday, A Routine Infidelity, which the title's great, and it's about a private investigator called Ted, who is a female Ted, because I'm also a lover of girls with sort of slightly boyish sounding names, and it's funny. Like, she's really dry and witty, so it's right up my alley. A really good story. That's a cracking read, and it's a bit more like detective, you know, follow that breadcrumb trail. And then I'm also reading Dark Mode by Ashley, middle name I can't say, Blunt.
Blunt. Yeah, I just finished that.
Did you love it?
Yes.
And given up the internet?
No. I thought it was masterfully done, and she's just such a delightful person in real life as well. Yeah. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. So they're 2 wonderful recommendations. Thank you. Now, obviously, I'm very excited for your next book, which you cannot talk about. So
I mean, I could, but I'm at that stage with writing it. I don't know where you are with yours, of how much plot and stuff you give away yet, but it's still, I think if anybody said anything to sway me, like, I'm still in the point where I'm like, oh, really? That's not something you'd read? And I'd probably take it too much on board. So even though I've spoken to my editor about it. But yeah, I am hopeful that it'll be finished and more books coming out with my name on the cover, which is an absolute thrill.
Okay, I'm going to thank you for your time today, because I'm very mindful that the twins could wake up at any moment.
They might be. I don't know. I've turned the sound down. Yeah, they are. I can see movement. So best I go and attend to my children. Thank you so much.
And so thank you to Molly's Cottage for supporting New Australian Voices and in their beautiful Reading by Candlelight book boxes, and so that we could have this wonderful conversation today. Thank you, Kerryn.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you for having me along, and thank you for making me part of Molly's Cottage book boxes. They're gorgeous, and I fully intend for the authors coming up. They're my birthday presents for people going forward.
Like, that's lovely.
I love that idea. You know, a book with some gorgeous stuff in there, and she's so thoughtful, all the little bits and pieces in there. So I'm rapt they exist. It's great.
Thank you so much, Kerryn, and all the best for writing book number 2.
Thank you. Thanks.